Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from GTDnordic. I am Morten Røvik and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Lars Rotskill Henriksen, or as Large Rock Henriksson, Siri would like to call you. And, and we will take that again. Okay. Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from GTDnordic. I am Morten Røvik and I'm here with my good friend and colleague Lars Rotskill Henriksen. Privet, Lars.
Privet, Morten. Good to see you as always and looking forward to recording another episode with you. Our purpose of this podcast is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. So as always, we hope that this episode supports you in that. If you're new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 6 to get an introduction to the basics of GTD. I just heard from a GTD Nordic podcast listener out there that she had listened to those 100 times. So wow. I thought that was a nice recommendation. Now, this is episode 69, and today's topic is managing recurring projects. But before we do that, I just wanted to follow up on one thing from last week's episode. We heard from one of our friends and listeners, Paul Verhoeven from Estonia. He chimed in and followed up on one of the questions. He said, "Hey, guys, congratulations on another great episode. I wanted to share with you my thoughts regarding the first question you addressed, how to organize the information generated by building a hospital. I understood the question that is about how to organize the information after the project is completed. So in essence, that is reference information and doesn't include action reminders. You gave a great answer, and what I would have liked to add is to suggest to Jerry to apply the natural planning model to this project, i.e. how to organize reference information. So walking through the steps, purpose, principles, while success brainstorming, etc. would have provided him and his team some clarity on the best way to organize this to fit the purpose." So thanks a lot, Paul. That's a great suggestion. Really just wanted to add that to Jerry and anyone else listening who might be managing a lot of information. Perhaps the natural planning model might be a good approach. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. And for those who want to know what the natural planning model is, we have an episode for that as well. So look through the backlog and you will find that somewhere. I don't remember the name.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes. Good. And for those of you who saw, we were smiling a lot before we started today's episode. The reason we did this because I tried to before we started our recording, before I opened the recording session or the session with Lars, I tried to write his name with the use of Siri, and I wanted to write Lars Rotskill Henriksen as a part of, we are looking for ways of doing things faster, and my mouth is faster than my fingers on the keyboard, so I was hoping that I can write Lars Rotskill Henriksen, and what came out? Large Rock Henriksson with a CK. So it's not perfect yet. So
well, you can just rename me in your phone address book, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, Large Rock. Hello, Mr. Rock. Okay. Yes, recurring projects. Very interesting topic. In the pre-show, we also talked about how would we attack this, and it is the recurring project could also be at least a semi-answer for the last episode, where we had the listener question about this: how do you handle recurring projects when the project comes back? And we are going to be as hands-on as we can. We will, for those of you who are not seeing this but listening to us, you might want to swing into one of our, or either Lars or my YouTube channel to see this episode, because we are going to show you our tools and how we are, practically are handling this. Because we both use a way or a method for copying good thoughts that we already made before, that we are just adjusting as we go along. So how would you like to attack this on a more, let's say, not esoteric, but on a more theoretical level before we get hands-on, Lars?
Yeah, I thought a good starting point might be for us to just clearly define the project versus the areas of focus. So Horizon 1 versus Horizon 2, because we do tend to see in seminars and coaching when we work with people that there can be some mix-ups in between the two. So it can be helpful to really distinguish the two and make it clear what we are talking about. So projects in the basic definition is anything that requires more than one action step to complete. Time frame is up to 12 months, but can certainly be less than that, just a few weeks maybe for some projects. As opposed to the areas of focus, which are things that you don't check off. So where projects have a defined outcome, that's what you're looking to achieve, the desired outcome, and you can check that off when what is done. The areas of focus is what you are maintaining at certain standards. So this is what you either have focus on or are responsible for in your work and life. So that would be, at home, it would be, your finances, relationships, hobbies, things like that. At work, it really depends on your work, what you do. But if you look at your job description or you talk to your boss, what do they expect you to maintain at certain standards? And then from that area of focus, projects will spring out. I think was the way you phrased it earlier. Anything we need to add to that in relation to managing recurring projects?
No, I just want to, if we can stay a little in the areas, if you look at them as, you can give them different wording, which means different things for different people. But so areas of focus might be a little, cloudy, fluffy for some people. But if you add responsibility, so what are you responsible for, or what do you want to focus on? So it's what you're responsible for and what you want to focus on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and they have no end. They're no beginning. They just are. Either you have them, you don't. So if you look at areas of responsibility and focus, it could be Lars is the managing director of Productive Denmark. This is one of his roles and one of his areas of responsibility in his work life. His work, not work life, because that's work-life balance. Now I'm getting my allegorical self going here. So, and another responsibility. Lars is a dad, so am I. So that's a responsibility that we have to maintain at some certain standards. And when you look at them, if you look at them on a regular basis in your for instance, your weekly review, you will be able to see if they are maintained at that standard you would like them to be maintained at, or you will look at them, you will go, you will have, some kind of cognitive dissonance happening, and then the project will be birthed out of that areas of responsibility. I'm using that. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe it's from David even, but I use that as a good phrase, because an area of focus has no end, no start. It's something you have or you do not have, but that area of focus or responsibility will give birth to projects when you feel you have a cognitive dissonance. That cognitive dissonance is big enough for you to feel, I really need to do something about this. I don't feel good about this.
And just on that topic, I mean, diving more into areas of focus is something that we did in the first episode of this year, so 2022, if you're listening in the future. So also highly recommend go back. I refer a lot of people that are, somewhat seasoned GTDers to maybe go back and watch that episode, because that's where we share some of the ways to approach this and build your own. And of course, just wanted to add that, so we don't, that you don't put a check mark next to these areas of focus. On the other hand, of course, they will change as time and life moves on. You switch your job or something else happens where things change in your life, then your areas of focus and accountability will need to be updated accordingly.
Yeah. Areas of focus, responsibility, and accountability. Now we have the full definition, I think. You used the accountability. I thought it might be good to add that. Okay, good. So, and then recurring projects. What is recurring for those of not native English speakers? What does recurring mean?
Yeah, so something that happens again and again.
Yeah,
I would say in the simplest definition. So things that happen
repeating.
on yes, exactly, on an ongoing basis. Things that will happen. So it could be things that you have to do on a recurring schedule. It could be things that you do ad hoc that you need to take care of. That would be a project in your GTD system. So let's say in my world, one of the things that I have to make sure is right now that we have everything ready for the closing of the books, the financial year from last year. I need to make sure that our accountants have all of the information that they need. So that's a recurring project for me that happens every year, and something that I need to deal with. So that's an example of a recurring project on a yearly basis for me. On a more regular basis, recurring projects for me are speeches, seminars, things like that that will happen that I need to deliver, prepare for, follow up on, make sure that everything is working as it should.
And just as an addition, it could be that you can use this on preparing to leave for vacation, or just make lists of. We use this in the home, or at least I use it in the home. I share it with my wife. She never looks at it, but hey, it's there. But it is, a checklist that I use before we leave the home. If we are leaving the home for 1 week, there, you have to look at the. Is something going to smell in the refrigerator? Do we need to throw something out? Empty the garbage, close the windows, check that, none of the ovens are covered by something that can start a fire, just to make sure that everything is ready for vacation. And that's also a recurring project. And for me, that's, recurring projects can be called checklists with next actions, predefined next actions. So I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, that would be one of the the key things to for people to reflect on, is to start looking for these recurring projects. So what do you know actually happens on a regular basis, and really learn from yourself. So the next time you see this project coming, then you already have perhaps a checklist to support you. And that would be a great addition, and something that's at least in my experience, it shows up pretty clearly for people who. Typically when people attend the level 2 seminar, because then they are somewhat seasoned GTDers, but they also, there's just something that happens when you start to do GTD and you get things under control, and you want to just start to help the future version of yourself. So you want to get ahead and say, all right, well, now I learned from this. Let's not repeat that mistake. So let me set up a checklist or some other way to remind me of what is going to happen here. So that next time I do it, I'll be that much smarter, and it will be so much easier for me to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned the level 2 seminars. In that, in those seminars, you also, or we also, take you on a deep dive into your areas of focus, responsibility, and accountability, so that they are mapped out, or at least you have a draft of the first map of your. So and
we do that, and we do the checklists, and both of those in
Right.
combination is just so a game changer for many people. It certainly was for me. And just as you learn, as you start to have this perspective on life, then you will start just help the future version of yourself automatically. The most simple version, I'm reminded now because I see the nice green plant behind you. Behind me, there used to be some green plants that I would just automatically water, and then I didn't automatically water them for a while. So they are now gone. So I have on my shopping list to buy a few new plants, and on the weekly review checklist, I have expanded to check if the plants need water. So it can be, on the bigger grand scale and important things like getting the books closed, and it can be just basic day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. So and what's that we are talking about, getting things done at a little higher level today. And if you are a beginner, this might be for inspiration for you, and for those of you who's been doing GTD for a while, maybe attended a level 2. That might be a repetition a little bit about how you can make this practically. But we are going to be very hands-on. I'm going to show you my Omnifocus templates folder, show you how that works. And the idea here is that we want to make this as practical as possible for you. So where do you have your recurring projects? Where do you keep them? In which I told you I have mine in. Some of my checklists are in Notes for iOS and Mac. Where do you keep and in Omnifocus? And where do you keep yours, Lars?
Yeah, split in 2 places as well. So so some of them, just a few, are in Todoist, and the rest are all in OneNote. And that's really, been using that for 10 years, I think, and it's just sort of started there, and it has that nice flexibility of being able to add things. So now I keep them there.
Do you share any of the lists with anyone?
Yes, my complete notebook is actually, or the one for personal use is actually shared with my wife. So we both have access to this and can go in and check. So, like you said, in relation to travels could be one thing, packing lists could be also closing down the summer house, opening up the summer house. I just used that one this weekend to make sure that we have everything going on. Just on that note, as an example, one of the things that I had on my checklist was to check the fire extinguisher to see that it was still valid, that the gauge was still at the green level, and it wasn't. So just an example of what you can catch, because I would never look at that by myself. I would not instinctively, let me go and have a look at the fire extinguisher to see how it's doing. But now I did, because I had the opening the summer house checklist that I walked through, found that, and so that's going to go to the recycling place, and a new fire extinguisher showed up on my shopping list.
Good.
So
then now you will be safe again, which is
exactly. Yeah. Hopefully we'll never need it, but if we do, we will have a working one.
Yes, and let me. I have been in a fire once. Not been in a fire, but I was in a fire that we need to extinguish ourselves. And working fire extinguishers are crucial for that job. So if not, there's going to be a lot of buckets of water and a lot of, cleaning up after. You have to clean up, but water and powder is not good. So powder is easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So for our listeners who are in, would you like to go first? By the way, I don't know if
sure.
Have you tried to share your screen? Have you tried that before?
I don't have a good section to share. So I think from my perspective, the ones that I will be the way I can share it is probably best to just describe it how I could do it. So, like I said, I have my recurring projects or checklists in this case in 2 different places. I have some in Todoist, and I have most of them in OneNote. So the OneNote things we just touched on now, which are really the ones that I will pick up and walk through ad hoc, so to speak, in the sense that they don't have any specific dates attached to them. So when I have seminars and speeches, I'll be follow-ups and waiting for us and things like that that I want to do. So I'll keep that in my active system. In OneNote, I have all my checklists. Not that it's a project in that sense, but things like the weekly review, for example, is a good example of that. Opening the summer house, closing the summer house, all my packing lists, all those kinds of things. Those are in my OneNote setup, and also my notes for coaching. So that is actually where I keep my coaching notes. I am looking into transitioning this to somewhere else, but right now, for now, I have a set of pages, about, I would say, 15 different pages for the starting interview, adjusted to whether it's with a executive or executive assistant or a normal coaching flow, and then depending on whether it's in person or virtual sessions, I will have templates actually for in the virtual case for each of the sessions. So I know that we'll cover all the stuff that we'll want to cover, and in coaching, the premise really is that we will go wherever you need to go, but I want to make sure that we covered all the bases. So it's a very, let's say, flexible checklist in that sense, in that I will work it as it makes sense for the coaching client. And also, we have follow-up calls, so I have templates for that, things that I want to follow up on. Also, just a placeholder for me to capture notes during the coaching session, or transfer notes during the coaching session to the things that I want to follow up on when we follow up. So those are the kinds of things that I keep in OneNote. It's very straightforward. Some of them are with tables, and I have my questions, a room for answers. Some of them are simply for the basic checklist, just the standard to do option in OneNote that you can then mark next to it, and then you can check them off as you go along. So that one is pretty straightforward. The other one that I use is in Todoist, and Todoist really, that is where I use for the level 1, level 2, level 3 seminars, speeches, and introductory webinars. So in Denmark, we do just a quick 30-minute introduction for free for people who are curious about GTD, want to learn more. I have a quick template for that. And the way I've done it, for those of you who use Todoist, is simply to create a project. They simplified it, I think probably a year back now. In the old days, you would create the project, not really a project in that sense, an active project. So I have a project called templates, and sub projects to that are the specific templates for each of the seminars. So those are really, have grown over the years. Every time I learn something new, I'll add that to the list. But there are some preparation that I need to do for each of the seminars. There's a packing list. There's stuff that I need to do afterwards, follow up, and so on. So they will go in there. And you can set it up with the relative dates, and you can set up some nice things. So when you go in and duplicate that project and move it into the active system, then you can work it from there. Right now, I still do it manually because I haven't found a nice way to do that. You can do it based on, so if I'm copying it today, then 7 days from now, remind me to do something. But, people book, some people book speeches 2 weeks in advance, and some people do it 4-6 months in advance. So I haven't really found a nice way to integrate that in the Todoist setup. And just a note, like I said, they made it simpler because they offered now to duplicate the projects. They have been for a while, but for those of you who might have come across it a while back, back then we would have to export the templates. You could export a CSV file, for example, and then you would create a new project, upload that CSV file, and then it would populate the fields. Today you could just duplicate the projects, and I use it. Yeah, exactly. So I really use that feature a lot. That's all of the speeches, coaching, and seminar, everything in relation to that. All of that is captured as templates that I can just copy and move into my. So I have a group called 2022, and everything that happens where I need a checklist or like a recurring project in today's topic, I'll put it in there, so I can clearly see where I am with each of them. And you have no chance of, if you're planning 5 speeches at once, how are you going to know at what stage each of those are? Have we clarified where we're going to be? Have we clarified, have they received the pre-information? Have I followed up with them? Have we invoiced them? All that kind of stuff is captured in those checklists. So I think those are the sort of 2 key places where I have those kinds of recurring projects. And I think it works. Overall, it works well for me. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I can show what I'm doing in Notes, and that is iOS and Mac OS Notes. I'm just going to show you what we do before travel to Turkey, and I will see if I can make this happen by doing this. You can also see this, and I will hide that. Let me see if I can find my second note here, because I will have to hide this, I think. Yes. Now this is before travel to Turkey. My wife and I travel to Turkey all the time. We have family there, so we go there often. And this is 3 days before. I have one checklist, and at the day of leaving, I have one. And 3 days before, I must remember to close so we don't receive newspapers. I do still read 2 newspapers every day. Keeps me connected to the world. I like paper. And then we need to, at least before, we needed to make order for something called a Hedge code that is no longer needed anymore because they've stopped doing that. So I can just delete that. Now I updated it. And then I have to make sure I make an out of office message. I just click the links and it goes straight to my out of office settings for the out of office. And on the day of traveling, I can then, when I've done this, I can detect them off. Oops. Now I got a question if I want to have sorting. No, I do not. Thank you very much. I want to have them in the order I already have them. And then as I go along, I will just tick them off. Check the refrigerator, throw out garbage, pull out the electric cords everywhere, turn down the temperature on ovens, check windows and veranda door. And then the last thing I will now update, since we are now here, is skru på alarm, which means turn on alarm. We just have an alarm system installed. So and when I finished, I can do this, and this list is ready for be reused. I will go back and I want to show you this is a project I just started a month ago, where I know this I will need to do again because I had some problems with my Mac. I have an elderly iMac who slowly started dying, and so I decided to buy a MacBook Air. I needed a light travel Mac, so I bought a MacBook Air. And I am going to, and I know I need to install these apps from Setup. Setup is a Mac app store outside the App Store where you can subscribe to apps, and I need to have OneNote, Renamer, iStat menu screens, etc. And I know I will do this again because I will set up a Mac from scratch again when in the autumn. I hope to be in the position where I can buy an iMac. I hope that will be some new iMacs coming so that we can have that. And I want to make sure that I can use that easy, and I don't have to then think about which apps I need to install. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and it's nice, that you can just share these. And of course, for the people listening, Morten walked through the detail, but just for those watching, it's nice and easy just to see these. And I think in a lot of cases with GTD, you might have read the book, you walk through it, you understand it, but it's just so helpful to see examples of this. And I think that's also why people, for example, appreciate the podcast in some cases where we just give examples of these things, because at least for myself and my own practice, I know that it made a huge difference once I started to understand how other people might want to do these things.
Exactly. So the next thing I would like to show is this is my this is Omnifocus. For those of you who don't know this, it's an iOS and Mac OS and web only. The web is, by the way, a little short of being fully featured, but this is for those of you who are using this. Here I have my templates folder. I can of course close and open that, and I've focused now on templates so you can't see the rest of my system. But this is my templates folder where I have 4 templates that I use all the time. So for instance, I have what we call a GTD startup kit. If you're a client of ours, you want to do full fundamentals and an installation lab, we call a startup kit. It's VILT. This is virtual. What do I need to remember and do before engaging in this? And with Omnifocus, you can create duplicate projects very easily. It's just right-click and then duplicate. This has been.
That's what you do today in Todoist as well.
Yeah. But when you take it a bit further, which I have, is I use, there is I think it is an AppleScript programmer. His name is Kurt Clifton. Hi Kurt, if you're listening to us, thank you so much for creating this. It's a little AppleScript that I have installed that lives up here. So when I choose one of the projects, and I can also look down in the notes section here, I have to make how this works is that I have to make what I want to be copied in. And the way that this is worked is anything that's in brackets here, in quotes, like kunde, client, dato, date, and the contact person I have. If I now trigger this script, it will prompt me for those brackets or quotes questions. So if I click here, it will ask me, I will go so you can see it, what is the date to date, and since I'm very lazy, so I'm using text expander to create the date, of course. And what's the client name? Let's say this is Coca-Cola. I don't know, we don't have them as a client. I can use that as example. And what's the contact person is Chris Kringle is a guy, I think. Kringle with a K is a, yes, I think K. Okay, so Chris Kringle. And what happened now is that I can't show you this, because if I show you, I will show you my full system. I can't do that, I'm sorry.
Boring.
Yeah, but what you will see is that, okay, I will go off camera for 2 seconds here, and I will show you. I am boring, thank you, Lars, for... Let me see, unfocus.
I didn't share anything, so really I shouldn't complain.
No. Let me see, focus. Okay, now I can share this with you. And the reason I can't share the system is there's a lot of client information here I can't show you. But this is GTD startup kit with Coca-Cola, and the name, it's a VILT, that's the name of the project, and I have to create a digital evaluation form 3 days before the date. Now I have a question for myself. Have I received the number of participants and contact info from Chris Kringle 1 week before? And this is giving myself some instructions on when do I need to have this. And then I can choose either to put them in the calendar by drag and drop, or I can just manually move them to the calendar as deadlines for myself so I can follow up when I need to follow up. So that's, and as you can see, I have created links, for instance, for creating the digital evaluation folder, the form, and that's in my that's in the notes field. So if I need something, and I will need to make, we have some what do you call that, certification of course completion. We create that and print that. And I can then, I have all the links. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm using this is because I can think smart and clearly before I do a seminar one time, and then after I just have to maintain how smart was it this time. So how well did this work this time? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And because we are having smart thoughts all the time. You are clever as a person, and capture that cleverness and that creativity, and just put it on repeat, because there are times in your life where you're not very creative, not very smart. I say Friday afternoon, anyone want to raise their hand? I think they might want to, because there are yes, thank you, Lars. Solidarity is a cool thing. No, but the idea here is that you must, and getting things done is all about being really lazy about things. And how can you get more of the right stuff done using less time and effort? And this is just harnessing your creativity, harnessing your smartness, and put it somewhere where you can put it on repeat or recurring, if you may. so you don't have to rethink. And this ties into, I think we had an episode where we talked about text expanders. Am I correct, or have you?
Yeah, we've touched on that before.
Yeah. So text expanders are where you can type an abbreviation and get the snippet you want of text or images or links or whatever you need to populate wherever you need it to populate. And the reason we are doing this is because you want to make reuse of something that is good. And so you think good and smart and write a long email. You can use that on repeat, and you seemingly are intelligent all the time when you are actually really dead tired. And you can then pull on your former performance.
Yeah. Rely on the previous smart version.
Yeah, exactly. So.
No, but it's important to understand that kind of thinking. I was delivering a speech on Friday last week for a group of lawyers. Really smart people, really, an amazing organization, actually very, very focused on well-being. One of their clear statements was to leave the office with more energy than when they arrived. They have really implemented. Yeah, I was really impressed, and they had really implemented some cool things and practices, standard Pomodoros on Friday, everyone at the office working in Pomodoros and things like that. They had really, really worked on that. And I really tried to emphasize that kind of thinking that, we are smart people. They were and are smart people, but really try to capture that. And, we're not that smart version all of the time.
Yeah. And I'm reminded I also did a seminar recently last week. I did a seminar for one of the biggest music festivals here in Norway. The managers of that, or the people who make that happen. And we were talking a lot about how can you use your energy level well. Getting things done is about creating and being nice to the future you. Remove all the obstacles, so when the future little your little dumber, a little more lazy and tired version of you has a runway to run instead of what do you call that? I think I asked that before. Do we have an answer to this? What is hekkeløp in English? Hedge run?
I don't know.
No, I don't call that. As an athlete, you run a track, and there is hedges you have to jump across.
Yeah. Jumping run.
Jumping hedges. No, I don't know what that is called. So if you know what that is, please send us an email. Illuminate me, because I don't know. But it is.
Or Google Translate. But yeah.
Or Google Translate. Yes, that's also a possibility. But I'm really lazy, so let's outsource this. If anybody has the answer, send it to us at podcast@GTDnordic.dk. Podcast@GTDnordic.dk. Please help us. So. but the idea of this the runway vs the hedge run, let's call it that, is that when you have a runway, you have no obstacles. There is nothing hindering you of running. So if you're really tired, you can just go tick things off your next actions list where it says, I'll call Bob regarding this, mention PDF, and so and so. And that makes it easy for you to be clever and intelligent when you're really not. You just have to do the things. You have to engage and do the things you've decided to do, and that is so much easier than having that little unclear thinking done on your next actions lists where you go, what did I really want to do here? That is when you meet the hedge. You run, and then you have to stop, and you have to think, and you have to say, how am I going to climb this hedge? How am I going to get over this? What do I need to do here? And that is where a lot of people end up procrastinating or just giving up. You just go to your whatever is your dark playground for where you play when you don't need to play. This is, by the way, from the Tim Urban. He has an excellent TED talk called "Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator." I think you have to link to that as well in here so that people can see that. Really good about procrastination, the TED talk there. the idea here is that you should not give yourself an excuse for not doing what you've decided to do, but to be able to remove the excuse, you have to be really clear on your clarification and organization of your stuff. You can't just organize unclear stuff and think that getting things done is going to work for you. So yeah, and this recurring project ties into that very easily, because then you don't have to think again. You've done all the thinking in advance. You just have to make a copy dummy, and I'm talking to myself now. A copy dummy, and you can do this. You don't have to think a lot, and you don't have to make new decisions. You just have to populate whatever you need to populate. And for those who I just remembered, I didn't mention that there is this Apple script. We will make a link to that page where you will find that Kurt Clifton's page about populate template. What did we call it again? Something. It's not important.
Populate template placeholders.
Yes, thank you. It's an Omnifocus Apple script that you can install. So. Anything we need to add to this episode? Are we at the end?
No, I think we covered everything. The only thing I don't know if we specified clearly enough was in the beginning to take us back to the defining of projects versus areas of focus. We started off by defining that just because we see people sometimes mix these up. So I just wanted to reiterate that and make it clear to people that we don't want to mix these. Projects will maybe come from the areas of focus, but be careful that you don't have an area of focus which you see as a project. So make sure that you actually define a project for that area of focus instead of just throwing it all in there, especially if you have, for example, grouped your next actions or by areas of focus, for example, then you just throw everything in there and it'll be one big mushy thing that you don't really see what you're working on. If these are recurring projects, create a project for that. Create a project for, publishing that article or getting that, all the finances done or whatever it might be. Make sure that you do still create projects for these and don't just mix them into areas of focus. Really important. Because I a very good point, Lars, because I also see that when I coach people go into their lists, they have instead of having projects, they have areas of focus like budgeting, economy, legal, and I ask, okay, where's the verb? where's the finishing line? How does done look? And they go, I will never be done with this. And exactly, this is not a project. This is an area of focus or responsibility. So, exactly. So if you don't have a verb defining when you're finished, and it doesn't have an end, it's an area of focus. So, and you don't have recurring areas of focus unless you are reincarnating. And can remember what happened in this. Now we got very deep. Okay. No, but I think we can wrap it up otherwise. Yeah. No, I think we can wrap it up, and we always do. With a quick reminder to head on over to GTDnordic.com to have a look around, because on that website you'll find links to each of the country websites for the Nordic countries, and on each of those sites you can find articles about GTD, newsletters, groups on social media, all of our offerings, coaches, speeches, coaching, and seminars, both virtual and physical. And you can find a lot of things there, clearly. If you're outside the Nordics, gettingthingsdone.com is the place to go to find your local partners. And I think one last plug for the GTD summer camp. We are now approaching 35 participants from 10 countries. It's amazing to see, and we're really excited. We had planning meetings last week to just finalize the schedule. It'll be so much fun, and really looking forward to it. So GTDsummercamp.com. We'll hopefully see some of you there. Morten and I will be there. It'll be a great weekend. Indeed. And lastly, as always, we really hope that you find these episodes valuable. If GTD has made a difference in your life, please do help us share this podcast by giving it a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. It really helps the discoverability of the podcast, which will help more people learn GTD, which is why we are here. Exactly. And until next time, people, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.